Good morning, everyone. This is a special day for the Kennedy Library, and I want to thank all of you for coming to share it with us, especially half the state of Iowa. It's wonderful to have all of you here to support our honorees and honor the memory of my father. All my life, people have told me that President Kennedy changed their lives. They decided to join the Peace Corps, or run for office, volunteer in the inner city or outer space, because he asked them to serve our country and do what they could to make this a more just and peaceful world. The generation that he inspired changed this country, fighting for civil rights, women's rights, human rights, and disarmament. And they passed that inspiration down to their children and grandchildren. As the first truly modern president, he redefined America's timeless values for a global audience and recognized the power of each individual to make a difference. As we mark the 50th anniversary of his presidency, his time is becoming part of history rather than living memory, that his words, his example, and his spirit remain as vital as ever. At a time when young people often feel disconnected from politics, we need to reach across the generations and recommit ourselves and our country to these ideals. One way that we connect past and present is through the Profile and Courage Award. By honoring individuals who act on principle without regard for personal consequence, we honor the quality that my father most admired in public life. This is a special year for the Profile and Courage Award because we are fortunate to recognize 4 outstanding Americans who demonstrate how critically important it is that men and women of courage serve in all branches of government. The people we honor today say that they were surprised to learn that they had been chosen. They don't think they did anything special. They were just doing their job. But for public officials, just doing their job often demands a special kind of courage. Standing up for human rights requires courage. Serving the interest of all citizens, not just the majority, requires courage. As President Kennedy's ambassador to India, John Kenneth Galbraith, once observed, "It is far, far safer to be wrong with the majority than to be right alone." We owe a great debt to the 4 people we honor today for their courage and for the sacrifices that they and their families have made to secure a more just and peaceful future for all Americans. In 2009, in the landmark decision Varnum v. Bryan, the Iowa Supreme Court issued a unanimous decision holding that a statute limiting civil marriage to a union between a man and a woman violated the Equal Protection Clause of the Iowa State Constitution. Iowa Chief Justice Marsha Ternus and Justices David Baker and Michael Streit voted with their colleagues to make Iowa the 3rd state and the first Midwestern state to allow gay marriage. The eloquent opinion states, in part, "Civil marriage must be judged under our constitutional standards of equal protection and not under religious doctrines or the religious views of individuals. This approach does not disrespect or denigrate the religious views of many Iowans who may strongly believe in marriage as a dual-gender union, but considers, as we must, only the constitutional rights of all people, as expressed by the promise of equal protection for all. We are not permitted to do less and would damage our Constitution immeasurably by trying to do more. In the final analysis, we give respect to the views of all Iowans on the issue of same-sex marriage, religious or otherwise, by giving respect to our constitutional principles. These principles require that the state recognize both opposite-sex and same-sex civil marriage." The decision of the Iowa Supreme Court sparked a political backlash. Nationally financed opponents of same-sex marriage ran an expensive and divisive political campaign intended to intimidate judges and legislators who oppose their views both in Iowa and beyond. Under Iowa's system, highly qualified judges are appointed by the governor and then subject to a retention vote every 8 years. The retention vote system is intended to provide a way to remove jurists who are unfit to serve, and the campaigns leading up to them have been characterized by the prevailing view that it is inappropriate, if not unethical, for sitting judges to engage in political electioneering. In November 2010, despite their long and distinguished service to the state of Iowa, Marsha Ternus, David Baker, and Michael Streit were ousted. They were the only 3 Supreme Court justices to stand for retention that year, and they are the only 3 judges in Iowa history to have been ousted in a routine retention vote. The justices were aware that they might pay a price even before they handed down their opinion, but they did not waver. In their decision, they wrote, "A statute inconsistent with the Iowa Constitution must be declared void, even though it may be supported by strong and deep-seated traditional beliefs and popular opinion." In 1963, as civil rights demonstrations throughout the South met with increasingly violent opposition, President Kennedy said, "We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the scriptures and as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, and whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated." Just as judges stood firm for civil rights 50 years ago, Marsha Ternus, David Baker, and Michael Streit, their colleagues on the Iowa Supreme Court, and dozens of other public servants across the country have put their own careers on the line to uphold the rule of law and extend the fundamental promise of equal rights. This award is usually given to elected officials in the legislative branch of government, but in honoring these 3 principal jurists, we seek to remind all Americans of the importance of an independent judiciary and its role in safeguarding our most fundamental rights. We are fortunate to have with us today 3 other Iowa Supreme Court justices who voted with our honorees. Justices David Wiggins and Mark Hecht are here today, along with current Chief Justice Mark Cady, who wrote the landmark opinion. I would like to ask them to stand now and be recognized. And now I would like to ask David Baker, former Iowa Supreme Court Justice, to come forward and accept the 2012 Profile and Courage Award.